Yo, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy checking in. Thanks for checking in latest Trade To Black podcast presented by Flowhub. I am your host, Shad Dales. And no surprise, the Seattle Seahawks won that Super Bowl last night. It was probably one of the most boring football games I've ever watched in my life. But, you know, it's a brand new season as hopefully we get some news from Attorney General Pam Bondi as we eagerly wait to see some sort of news. Right now, it's relatively flat here. Yo, what's up? Good to see you, Brady. Anthony and I are going to talk about this in just a moment. Michael Bronstein's going to join us as well, but we're going to talk about this refinancing that Curaleaf announced this morning, private placement, $500 million, 11.5 senior secured notes. Ascend Wellness also put out preliminary results for Q4 and all fiscal of 2025. Finally, we'll talk about Senator Ted Budd, who said that President Trump was poorly advised when it came to rescheduling of cannabis. You believe this? I read this story and I thought, I don't know what the heck to think of this, but, you know, to get it out of the youth's hands seems a little bit ridiculous because, again, it furthers the fact that what we said all along, this is about ideology. A lot of these politicians who they paid off by, because when it comes down to science, there's no better endorsement than the HHS recommendation from August of 2023. Enough said. So how's that for poorly advised? So with that, let's welcome in AV on a Monday. Good to see you.
How's it going?
You know, living the dream. Football's done, buddy. Now it's on to the next thing.
It was Super Bowl sucked.
It was terrible.
I thought the game was bad. I mean, I won my FanDuel, so it was good. But the actual game, Seattle just whooped their ass.
Oh, it was
Drake May looked lost, and that offense just was embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I think I called that on the podcast last week. So
I think that was probably one of the easiest games to take part in if you wanted to place a little wager on it. But yeah, the 50.5 I looked at as far as the over-under. I'm like, what was it? 9-0 at halftime. And it looked like those 9 points were definitely a hard-fought 9 points. Bad Bunny. Yes. A lot of attention around that. And a lot of controversy. I think he did a decent job, but you know, I don't want to get into the
good.
I mean,
it had good production. The visuals were good. It told a story. I mean, the football with Together We Are America, his whole parade of all the flags. The American flag was first, leading the charge.
You're right.
Like, if you got a fucking problem with the guy speaking Spanish, like, just shut up. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
They tried something. It was a risk. Obviously, like, it elicited a lot of really just vitriolic responses in people, but it's music, it's performance. Get over it. Like, it is what it is. The funny thing is they had a video of the Super Bowl party at, I think, Mar-a-Lago, and they had the halftime show on the big screen of Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's manufactured bullshit. I'm just fed up. If you can't tell, I'm completely fed up.
I like it.
It wasn't a statement. He didn't say fuck ICE. He didn't say anything divisive or like un-American.
Yeah.
It was a good performance with a good message, and people just need to get over it.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Also pointing out when I was watching the Super Bowl yesterday, I couldn't help but think and just fantasize. We talk about this sometimes. The day that we see something like THC beverages, hopefully at some point advertised during that game, because there's a lot of alcohol brands. I don't know what the 30 or 60 second going rate was for this year's game, but I know in the past it's been, if memory serves me correctly, I think it's north of 5 million. I think it's close to 10 million now, if I'm correct.
It's up there. I mean, it's big. I didn't see any ads that I thought were like earth shattering or like good. I mean, I was kind of pissed. I was looking forward to like a Doomsday Avengers ad, but that didn't make it on there. They just kind of scathed or nixed it. And all the other ads, nothing was really memorable like years past.
Is it $8 million, Big Bear? $8 million you heard, huh?
It doesn't surprise me.
That doesn't surprise me at all, too. Wonder what the numbers were, but yeah. Love the Bud Light commercials. Yes, they had good ones, but hopefully one day we get the THC stuff going on. But before we get into today's podcast, again, it's presented by Flowhub. If you follow cannabis policy or invest in this space, you already know one thing matters above all else, and that's compliance. And that's where Flowhub comes in. Flowhub powers licensed cannabis retailers with real-time inventory tracking, ID verification, and compliance tools that bring transparency to an industry that desperately needs it. Regulated markets work, and Flowhub helps make sure that they stay that way. If you want to learn more and book a demo, Go to flowhub.com. All right, let's get into it. A lot of news to talk about. We'll get at the big one, which is Curaleaf, who announced a major refinancing deal, a $500 million private placement that pushes their debt maturity out to 2029. This is a significant balance sheet move and one that tells us that they're preparing for a longer runway. We always say you need lots of runways in this space right now, and they just got it. So your thoughts on this based on this announcement from this morning? Yeah,
it was good. I mean, there were two big boys that needed to get the monkey off their back with Curaleaf and Varrell.
yeah.
I'm hearing Verano's probably going to get done here pretty soon.
Okay.
Curaleaf got it done, $500 million at 11.5% coupon, due February 2029. Their debt was coming due in December. The coupon is, I think, 3.5 points higher than the pre-existing notes, but we were in a much different rate environment in 2021 when those notes were originally invested in. So, I mean, it's a function of just where we are today. Like, it's still a competitive rate. It's at 11.5%. Boris got the refi done. I think he mentioned that there was up to 10 new investors that were new to the cannabis industry that took place in the financing. It's positive. It takes one of the big question marks out of the equation. That was, when is Curaleaf going to get this financed? Them pre-announcing their earnings probably 2.5 weeks ago was foreshadowing this, that they were probably on a road show. They needed to get that information out because they can't talk about material non-public information even in those talks, and they got it done. Congrats to them, and now they move forward.
I remember when they went listing on the TSX. How many years ago is that now? 2? Yeah, a little over 2 years ago. Boris telling me they had 58,000 investors when they went public. 58,000, a lot of investors. But when you brought up that 11.5% rate right now, is this simply just the cost of capital here and the I guess ecosystem that we're in right now? Because it sure appears that way. And like you said, 11.5% seems to be the going rate. So
it's not. I wouldn't hold on. I wouldn't say it's the going rate. Trulieve did do their refi at 10.5%. So I mean, they got a full percentage point cheaper on their coupon. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the going rate, but it's not a bad rate. 11.5% on this facility. I think the amortization on a yearly basis was like close to another 30 million in debt service. If 2E goes away, S3 goes hard, that's negligible in the grand scheme of things.
For sure.
Within the P&L. But Trulieve got a better deal. But at the same time, I mean, it is what it is.
And do you think they just got a better deal because they're healthier as far as the company? Like, why do they get, say, a 10.5% rate versus, say, Curaleaf 11.5%? Any
Profile
idea?
Profile the business. I'm not a debt investor, so I mean, I don't really fundamentally understand what in the underwriting process and the investment thesis mandates a 10.5% coupon versus an 11.5% coupon. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into there. Curaleaf does have a significant portion of debt still to refi, so I'm sure that goes into account. But yeah, Trulieve did get a better rate on the refi about 6 weeks ago.
But the big takeaway here is more runway, and all signs point in the right direction. Curaleaf, I think they are the third largest holding, if I'm correct, in MSOS. They were number one a couple months ago, but I think the number one now is Trulieve, followed by GTI. But correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I'm getting a text message right now, running a few behind, Mr. Michael Bronstein. That's okay. We'll move on to our next topic, which is Ascend Wellness, who released their preliminary Q4 and full year numbers. And the theme here is consistency, revenue growth, solid EBITDA, no major debt maturities until 2029. So they continue to be one of these operators that is executing, which is, I think, good to see, knowing there was a few question marks, say, 12 months ago. So do you see them in a good shape and being, I guess, one of the consolidators of the industry once we start to really see things start to fast forward and get moving here? As far as
I don't see them as I don't think you could define anybody as a consolidator in the industry that's not named GTI, Trulieve, Curaleaf, or Verrell. Or potentially Cresco. I don't think Ascend has the footprint. I don't think Ascend has the balance sheet. I mean, they've got a nice business. They're heavily weighted on wholesale in a good amount of their footprint. They've got some sophisticated retail. It's a solid company, but I would see them getting picked up moving forward versus them being an actual consolidator. I would buy them if I was one of the bigger MSOs and there were synergies that I could get in some of those main states where you're seeing margin compression, and they have a very healthy wholesale business.
I haven't followed their story as closely as we once did at one time, probably 18 months ago. But what's changed, do you think, in the last 6 to 12 months? Have you looked at it? Like, obviously the numbers don't lie, but is there anything that stands out to you, or have you followed the story that much as well?
They changed executive management. Some of the founders came back in, righted the ship. I mean, you started to see an improvement in the P&L after they took over. They're having success in a couple of their markets. They're having stabilization in a couple of their markets, and they're showing that they're good at wholesale. They're very good at wholesale. That's kind of what I don't want to say live and die by, but that's the part of their business, albeit lower margin business, but that's part of their business that shined in the last 9 to 12 months.
Good to see. Nice to see. And hopefully that continues to scale up with big companies like that, because we need more players in the space as this industry hopefully enters into the next stage. But wink, wink, Attorney General Pam Bondi. And speaking of Washington, let's shift there, because there's one political significance going on right now. We obviously know it's the reschedule of cannabis. And pertaining to that, Senator Ted Budd said he personally told President Trump that he was poorly advised on marijuana rescheduling, which is a direct challenge from inside the president's own party. When I read this, I'm like, okay, give me exact reasons as to why he was poorly advised. And sure enough, came up the whole youth topic again. And again, it's extremely misleading, because as we've discussed many, many times in our last few podcasts, actually for tons of podcasts, that is not true. There's no data that backs that up. In fact, it says the complete opposite when looking at states like Colorado, Washington, you name it. I just look at this and roll my eyes and don't take it with too much interest or really relevance. I'm assuming you do the same thing when you read this story.
Who knows who Ted Budd is?
Who is Ted Budd? I don't even.
I don't think anyone knows, and anyone cares what Ted Budd's opinion is on cannabis. If people want to see an informed opinion on cannabis, look at Tom Tillis from North Carolina. Senator Tillis has a very well-informed view on cannabis, where it should be and where it's going to go. I mean, I bet you he's probably friends with Kevin Sabet and probably goes to the SAM summits, if I had to make a bet. But like I said, no one knows who he is. I don't think anyone cares who he is. And I don't think that he's going to be advising the president on cannabis policy moving forward. I don't think he's influential in terms of cannabis policy moving forward. Very few people are going to sway Donald Trump in his thinking. And one of them is not going to be Representative Budd from North Carolina.
Just saying the name, I'm like, I'm probably with you there. But it's amazing how...
no one is saying that the youth of America should be using marijuana. No one. Absolutely nobody. And there was something else before the show that was from Joe Scarborough saying that cannabis should be, I don't want to mess this up because it was actually a pretty important line.
Where was
the drug is bad? The drug is bad for young developing minds.
Correct.
The drug, the substance, the plant, whatever you want to call it, is not intended for young developing minds. Just like alcohol is not intended for young developing minds. Nicotine either. These substances are age gated. They're put in the hands of adults, and adults are allowed to make the decision if they want to use these substances. The argument that cannabis is not intended for children, or the argument that cannabis use is targeting children, is absolutely insane at this point. Simon's correct. It's just gaslighting. It's tugging on heartstrings, and it's trying to make an argument out of something that no one is trying to make the argument out of.
Yes.
There are studies out there that show cannabis use has adverse effects on a developing brain under the age of 25.
Correct.
You're not going to find a lot of people in this industry that can look at studies like that and actually are going to argue against it. Like, it is what it is. There was another study that's circulating, which I don't want to talk about it too much because I didn't read into it, but at a base level, it was showing that cannabis actually had therapeutic and generative effects on brains that were 40 years and older. So there's tons of conflicting stuff out there. But the fact of the matter is young developing brains are not who cannabis is targeting at all.
Did you see that video or the episode with Bill Maher where he had Christina Freeland from Canada and Chris Christie on? What'd you think of that?
I'm not a big fan of hers.
I'm not a big fan of hers either, but I thought it was funny when Chris Christie talked about different politicians in Washington where they say these things and think he's crazy. When they go on media, they say, you realize I had to do that afterwards. And then Bill Maher was basically said, who said that? He put Christie on the spot, and he obviously mentioned Lindsey Graham's name. But yeah, you're right. That's just, you get a real glimpse behind the scenes as to what these politicians are like, because common sense sits here and says, like, how many Americans obviously are in full support for cannabis reform, especially rescheduling, but there's a small group, and when it comes down to money, and if you're paying, that's just the way they operate, as we know. And it's very unfortunate because, gone are the days of many people just believing what a lot of these politicians are saying, because the world just has access to so much information now. Not necessarily saying that's a good thing for all the information they read, but in this particular case, we're well past the point where whether it's good or bad, the Americans want it, rescheduled, because it does have its medical benefits. And the biggest selling point to that is the HHS recommendation. Like, come on, man.
But all that doesn't even matter. It's a freedom issue. Should adults have the right to choose to smoke marijuana and consume cannabis if they see fit?
Yeah.
That's it. Doesn't matter if it's medicine. Doesn't matter if it's good. Doesn't matter if it's bad. There's plenty of bad shit out there in the store that you can buy you're free to go purchase.
Yeah.
It's a freedom issue. Should adults have the ability to purchase and consume cannabis as they see fit? It's a yes or no question that's very easily answered. If you believe in civil liberties and freedoms, like, yes, adults should have that option if they see fit.
Yep. Well said. I think one of the people wrote here dirty is CGC going to get bought out. No idea, but I will bring up real quick. It was in our newsletter this morning. If you didn't get a chance, make sure to scan the QR code, become a baked in newsletter subscriber. But Canopy Growth on Friday, they posted consolidated net revenue of $75 million, which is flat year over year. Headline number to masks a more constructive internal shift. Cannabis revenue rose 4% to $52 million. What else did we see? We saw Canadian medical cannabis was the standout. Revenue jumped 15% year over year to $23 million. It was fueled by growth in insured patients and larger average order sizes. Adult use Canada also grew up from 8% to now 23 million. So slowly but surely, we keep talking about this. Luc Maggio seems to be riding the ship here. Still some ways to go, but the man is backing up what he has said a couple times on our interviews. But your thought from Friday's call that they announced?
It's a stepping stone quarter. It's a stepping stone quarter again. Luke's doing a damn good job. He's done everything he said he was going to do. He's stabilizing the balance sheet. P&L is looking healthier. He's figuring out the international business. The Canadian domestic business is looking good. They're going to integrate MTL. It's good. Say what you want about Canopy. I know it's got a history marred in, I don't want to say controversy, but just a lot of people have a lot of very vitriolic opinions on Canopy. A lot of people still like Canopy. Say what you want. Luke has executed, and he continues to execute. Canopy continues to be one of the companies in Canada that is trending upwards versus stagnating or looking like it's going to start trending backwards.
Seems to be a few Canadian companies. When you think about Rubicon, you think about Canopy, you think about Organigram, Village Farms. Tilray is always a household name that people like. So yeah, it seems to be that obviously the growth of what's going on overseas is definitely helping as well. But suddenly what were you going to say?
Coca-Cola is not testing a cannabis flavored beverage. That was a crazy meme that went like viral last week. It was a parody account that posted it.
Okay.
I saw that damn thing everywhere. Coca-Cola is not testing cannabis flavored beverages. Maybe they'll put a THC beverage in their portfolio sooner rather than later, but they're not actively testing anything that's cannabis actual flavor. That was a satirical post on a parody account.
That got
picked up everywhere.
Before we segue into Insider's Edge with Michael Bronstein, who's just in the background right now, we're going to bring him up in just a moment. Just want to mention as well that YOLO, it was the #1 performing cannabis ETF. And when you look at the news about Curaleaf securing $500 million in senior secured notes to refinance debt maturing in 2026, that was announced here today. YOLO, actually, their allocation, MSOS, is 45% allocation of their ETF. And part of that ETF is Curaleaf, which has the third largest position at 23.29%. So if you want to learn more, log on to Advisor Shares for YOLO. And like I said, the biggest holding is MSOS, followed by, if my memory serves me correctly, yes, it is Village Farms, a little over 18%, followed by High Tide. So if you guys didn't get a recap or didn't get a chance, check out my TDR Cannabis and 5 from this past Saturday. Was a recap of the weekly performance for YOLO, followed by Sunday with MSOS. Let us know your thoughts if you like those weekly recaps as to what I'm doing on the weekends. And appreciate any feedback. And if you like them, then we'll keep those going every single week. But
Curaleaf is the largest holding in MSOS now.
Is it?
By weight, yeah. 23.29%. It's bigger than Trulieve and it's bigger than GTI.
Oh, it is. I thought it was the...
No, largest.
Oh, okay. My apologies. I thought it was third. I knew it was the biggest, but I thought maybe that changed recently. But okay, I stand corrected. All right, let's bring in Michael Bronstein. But before we do, a quick word from our friends over at Free Nicotine Pouches. Hey, if you follow markets, trade volatile sectors like cannabis, or run a business day to day, you already know how important focus is. Headlines move fast, decisions matter, and distractions, hey, they're everywhere. And for me, if I don't stay focused, some days my days can end up like this. Oh man, I got a lot on my plate. Oh my God, I get through those emails. And I gotta get that package out. Where did I leave my sunglasses? But when I pop in a free nicotine pouch, my day starts to become more focused, and it ends up like this. Hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's lock in that 67% gain. Great trade. Because listen, I don't smoke, I don't vape, I don't want anything like that in my lungs. And that's why I use Free Pouch. Free gives you control with clean nicotine delivery, ranging from 3 milligrams up to 15, depending how intense your day is. Just discreet, clean focus when you need to lock in. Check them out at freepouch.com. And right now, you can save with promo code TDR20 at checkout and save 20% on your next purchase. freepouch.com. Save $20, everyone. Save $20. Use it responsibly. All right.
The sunglass bit was great.
Where's my sunglasses? You guys like that? Let's bring him in, Mr. Michael Bronstein, here on a Monday. First off, how are you feeling? Because I know you were under a little weather.
I'm upright at this point. I appreciate you asking.
I know, but I saw a breakout with a number of Olympic teams that were dealing. What was it called? What was the virus that you had again? But it came across. But everything okay?
I had neurovirus. It was awful. Don't get that. I highly advise against getting that if you can prevent it.
Big fever?
All types of stuff you don't want.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Well, good to see you. Well, guess what? It's good to have you back. It's Insider's Edge. It's Monday, and it's presented by the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp. But good to see you, and a lot has happened since we had you on 2 weeks ago. And we'll start with, obviously, PA, because things are moving quickly. Governor is once again calling for adult use legalization. House lawmakers are now publicly blasting the Senate for refusing to act, and the political pressure is definitely rising, and it is rising. It seems to me that this is only going to get louder, that's eventually going to result in something finally being decided, Michael, because this has been going on for years. But it just seems like we're at the point now where this is getting so loud that a decision is going to be made here.
Yeah, there's definitely a loudness to the conversation. I thought that the governor did well in terms of bringing it up in the address again, and was talking about it as comprehensive cannabis reform, which I think is also an important point here, because there have been several bills that have been introduced. The governor now also, I think, is also aware of there could be a number of different vehicles that might move that could address the issue, and also the budget really is contingent. Last year, the budget really we're in this period where it really is contingent on being able to get more revenue in. So you saw neither gaming nor cannabis was done in last budget, but none of the problems went away.
Right.
And in fact, they got worse. And so I think that what you're seeing with Republicans saying is that there's really no way to be able to do this budget without bringing in additional revenue. And that's something that wasn't really acknowledged in the last budget negotiation. And so when they came to a close in the last negotiation, which only ended a couple months ago because of how long it drew out, essentially it was an agreement to disagree, and they took all the loose change that they had in the couch, which, as it was described by Leader Pittman, was a Senate Republican, and they basically threw it. And when you look at the way that they move money around, they just can't do that again. I mean, it was a Band-Aid budget here. And I think that coming into this cycle, everybody knows that this is a much different set of circumstances that we're running into.
Tom at Marijuana Moment, or it might have been Kyle that wrote the article, but they ran an article today saying from an advocate's perspective in PA, they believe that Governor Shapiro needs to really take the leadership position and get this done with his state government. I mean, do you agree there that it needs to have more emphasis and, let's say, follow through from Governor Shapiro to whip the House and Senate and PA into getting this done? I guess it to a greater degree than just putting it in the budget and talking about it, as we've seen him do multiple times.
The governor made the approach, and I saw this, firsthand in the last cycle. I mean, the governor continued to make the approach to the Senate, and the Senate was, unwilling to necessarily put it on the table in the context of the budget. I think that the governor calling it out along with a line item that Republicans want to see also, I think, signals to the chamber that that he wants to play ball on the issue. And it is the revenue item. And then even after the address, I mean, the governor was out there posting, the top priorities for this budget. And from a revenue item perspective, this was tops of the list. So I think that the public pressure, I think that what they're counting on is that they're hoping that public pressure also moves where the Senate has been traditionally on this in order to be able to get to a deal around this budget. So, I don't think that I don't think that anybody likes, certainly not us, that we have to go through another budget period where this hasn't been done yet and restarting basically this process. But the reality is that nothing in this space has ever come easy, and this is not going to be one of those things that's going to come easy.
No, in Pennsylvania, have you spoken to or been able to kind of develop with a feeling of like what's going on the ground? The Republican senators and congressmen in Pennsylvania, I mean, that are apprehensive to adult use, are they speaking from a point of their constituents? Or are they speaking from a point of they have preconceived notions that they just don't agree with adult use cannabis, whether their constituents want it or not?
So it's a certain subset of constituents that they're concerned about. The certain subset of constituents they're concerned about are Republican primary voters. They're not worried about general election voters, and most of them don't really have to face a general election. So they're thinking about, well, what is it? Like the thing that they're most worried about is getting primaried, because districts in Pennsylvania are fairly gerrymandered. So, you have a state Senate where there is a handful of competitive elections per year, right? So maybe there's 3 or 4 in a year where it's actually competitive election that could determine the outcome of the chamber, right? And the rest of them, if you're Republican, you're majority, right? So call it 23 other districts, right? They're all worried about primaries, right? So if you have half, because they're never going to have to face a real general election in a meaningful way. So what you have is in the caucus, it's where my primary voters and the primary voters, they want to see movement amongst those primary Republican voters and support. Now, the good news is that you can make support amongst Republican primary voters. And in the polling that we've seen or done, we've seen Republicans move, and we've seen Republicans move fairly substantially in certain age demographics and certain income demographics when they're messaged about broad-based support for reform, which means that fundamentally, if we start campaigning to those people, that Republicans will take notice, and their views on this about whether or not they should be voting on this will shift. And I think that will fundamentally change potentially how people are looking at this on the ground. Let's not forget we had an executive order too. So even with what we've seen and what we've done previously, we do see numbers numbers that are shifting, or numbers that could be moved, quite frankly, through a pretty dedicated campaign.
Got some pretty opinionated pieces here. Somebody writing some comments here, but yeah, I'm all for that. Same story all over the country. Primaries eliminated moderates with Citizen United dark money in gerrymandered districts. We, the people, are dysfunctional voters. I don't know if I'd buy too much into that, but I think when you look at this, the latest news, I definitely think this is a coordinated escalation. And let's think hypothetically here, Michael. Like, if we get this ruling for rescheduling of cannabis in the next, say, 60 days or whatever, I don't know, 60, 90 days, at some point, let's say, hopefully in 2026, you're a brand new calendar year. You're talking a brand new fiscal in PA. Once that's implemented, like, I would think that things are going to move rather quickly towards PA, would they not, based on everything that we've learned?
Yeah, I do think that in Pennsylvania, stuff is, opinions are shifting on the ground on this as we, as we look forward on this. And, the other thing is that 2025 is not the same thing as 2026, even though some of the players may look the same and some of the things may, some of the politics may be residual, and left over on it. But I mean, I think that there are fundamental differences.
What would be those differences?
I think that you have a potential, you have Republicans that are talking about cannabis regulation in the form of regulating intoxicating hemp in the state, and the need to address that issue. So I think that it's hard to talk about that issue without talking about what full legalization looks like in the context of Pennsylvania. And if you have Republicans do support, Republicans do support that. And, we've seen bills like we saw SB 49 pass out of committee. And there was only one Republican that voted against it. Everyone else voted for it, including the Senate Pro Tem. And so I think that over the next couple of months, we may very well see SB 49 move. And I think that there'll be a larger conversation about what regulation looks like, because that would set up an independent regulatory body to regulate cannabis in Pennsylvania. So I think it's a fundamentally different conversation that happens with a bill like that being talked about or being moved.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that I do think that folks are gonna start talking about and thinking about that. And I think that's why you saw it play such a major role in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
If one of those bills move, is there any sort of semblance on what a timeline would look like, let's say, towards implementation of the actual program? Are we looking at, let's say, something maybe like Virginia, which bills are getting traction right now, and they're setting, let's say, a November 2026 to potentially January 2027 start date? Would it be something to the tune of that if it moves expeditiously within the PA legislature?
The governor, when he set out his address, he anticipates passing adult use legalization in his budget by June 30th this year, with the first sales booked by January 1st of 2027.
Okay, so pretty much, very in line with VA.
Yeah,
that's potentially.
That's interesting.
That's how they're calculating it.
Mitch writes, "Why make a move as a state if Schedule 3 is supposed to be soon?" What do you mean by that? Because I think that's what we're saying is you're probably going to see a Schedule 3 happen first, and then they probably would move after that. Not sure what you're elaborating on, Mitch, but yeah. Anyways, but all in all, it's just, this is at least telling. When you look at this sort of an orchestrated dispute as to what's going on, it's getting louder and louder. And like my point from originally off the top, regardless of what's happening right now, and like you said, there are some new, I guess, topics that they need to address. And obviously the hemp topic is definitely one to strongly consider here in 2026. It's positive, though, as to some of the work that is being done behind the scenes. And I can't help but feel it. Yes, it's not this perfect straight line up as to how things are going to get rectified and have adult use to pass. But I do think that we are headed in the right direction, and we will get something sooner rather than later, is my view and my thoughts. But I could be wrong. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, also legalization around the budget in Pennsylvania too. Any policy development around the budget, and fundamentally, people have a hard time with this on any policy matter around the budget. So, I've been through a number of budget negotiations in my career, and what can happen with the budget is if you have a big, broad policy, it doesn't look like how a bill becomes a law the way that you think about it in terms of, you know, how folks generally think about it. What can happen is you could have a few different proposals go back and forth, and then they all go into a back room. They decide what's in it,
Right.
And then they come out. They drop the text that they want into a moving vehicle, and then it's just done in like a matter of a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that can happen. Like when things go right, that's what happens, and then it's negotiated kind of in the. It's like things are negotiated in the background. I mean, and that's sort of what I anticipate this is going to look like when it moves into negotiation position.
Yeah. One thing, I don't know if you followed it. I know Anthony's going to get into this later this week, doing a TDR plus with Hirsch Jane, who's going to be back on the podcast. But it's this lawsuit that's in Ohio. Have you been following this at all much, Michael?
I saw it. I saw it over the weekend. Was the lawsuit that was filed, I guess, at the end of last week.
Price fixing and anti-competitive behavior. Very early stages. Not a lot of stuff that we know other than the lawsuit itself. But when you see something like this, and I'll start with you, Anthony, it's obviously going to grab your attention. But this is quite serious that I think everybody from multiple sides are taking very serious at this point, and we'll see what happens next. But are you hearing anything?
It's a lawsuit that was brought forth by the state AG. I had my paralegal Claude create a draft a memo and dissect the 50-page complaint today. It's about agreements and things agreements that were made between companies to where you buy my product, I'll buy yours. You give me shelf space, I'll give you shelf space. Amongst some of the MSOs that were named in the lawsuit. I'm going to dive into it much deeper with Hirsch on Wednesday at noon, which will be a TDR plus live stream. But I mean, it's just a lot of the stuff on first glance looks subjective, hearsay. I mean, the state of Ohio is not making this easy just in general for any of the MSOs to operate there. From the rollout of the adult use market to the ongoing refining of the true regulations for the adult use market to now this lawsuit, which I'm curious to see who actually influenced it getting brought forward by the AG in the first place. It states anti-competitive behavior, like you had said. Price fixing, I think, is strong language due to what I've read in it thus far. But that is some of the language that is used in the complaint. And it's yet to be determined. But does this set the precedent for further lawsuits in other states? Because I'm not surprised by this behavior. I've heard of this behavior going on before. However, is the behavior being executed in a way that is cartelish and or criminal? I think that's going to be really hard to prove. I mean, businesses can do business with who they want. If I'm business A and Michael's business B, if he's taking a certain amount of my product via wholesale and I'm taking a certain amount of his product via wholesale, I'm going to reward him with more shelf space from a merchandising perspective in my retail locations. You got to take care of your business relationships to a certain extent. I'm actually going to be very interested to see where this lawsuit goes.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, break it down to a further degree on Wednesday with Hirsch. But it's way too early to be determined if this is frivolous or if it has any teeth to begin with.
Michael, does Anthony have a point where it could grab the attention of other attorney generals from other states? Or like, how does that work? Or could it work or not work? Like, you know this better than what we do.
Yeah, I mean, attorney generals do follow what other attorney generals are doing. But generally, if you were to see a coordinated effort amongst attorney generals, you would see a number like, and we've seen those types of things before, like in the tobacco, like around the tobacco industry, or other multi-state, multi-jurisdictional type of actions. I think you saw a lot, like there are examples of this that you would know of in the public. That wasn't, as far as I can tell on this particular one, they're talking about, and I only read sort of the release that was done on the AG, and can talk in general about kind of how AGs look at this stuff. I think a lot of them are going to be watching just to see, like, I think this is pretty early days with what is being said here on it. I'm sure folks are going to be paying attention to it. But I don't think, this to me wasn't, from an AG perspective. I'm sure a number, AGs watch what these other things are doing. But I think basically what they would do here is they probably would just keep tabs and watch what's going on, because you don't know what's going to happen with this.
No,
you don't know what's going to happen with this case. And it just looked like at the end of the, the release, the relief that they were seeking was, it just looked like they were seeking some level of relief on it. So I'm not certain. I think we have to watch the space to find out what's going on. And I think that also there's been large pushback on the case being filed as well.
Yeah.
When you look at specific states that have a great market and a great program in place and other states that don't, why don't more states that come on live just look at other states that are doing well and just copy that? Why is it so difficult and they just can't keep things simple? Or is there more to it? Money, exactly.
It's who writes the rules.
What state? I mean, what state would you?
And I was going to say, Chad, what state is a good example? What give us an example of a good state?
Yeah, what state's a good example? I mean, the thing is it's like where you come from.
Actually, now I think about it, I'm just like, what state would I pick?
It's all subjective.
But remember, we also said too, and it all depends on what operator you ask. I mean, I think that's the most interesting thing of it. That's why I think that at the federal level, we're more likely to get if we're in a good spot, we're more likely to get a States Act approach that allows states to, continue what it is that they're doing, because a lot of the way these states are sort of Byzantine with how they've set up their regulations. Now, look, if you look at alcohol, there's a very similar thing that goes on where there've been state regulatory models that have been set up, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at what this state does relative to that. We just don't do that. We just don't pay as close attention to that. Yeah. But talk to the regulatory guys, who are working for Anheuser-Busch or whatever, Molson, whoever, right? In there, I'm sure that they could name a bunch of different states where they're like, all right, this is better to do this and better to do that.
Yeah.
So for the companies that you just mentioned, I would argue that Florida is a great state to operate in if you happen to be one of the very well capitalized large businesses that are currently in the market. Florida is terrible for somebody that wants to come in and just own a piece of the pie, because we're super vertical. There's no horizontal licenses here. But for Trulieve, Curaleaf, Verano, Cresco, it's a good business. Granted, it's super vertical. You got to own every single piece of the supply chain, but you need $100 million to come compete here. Yeah. There's not people lining up at the door to come get a cannabis license in the state of Florida, because no one in their right mind is going to want to come here and compete with Kim. Like, you just don't. But again, who was instrumental in writing the rules and the regulations for the market? Who are the founding companies in the market? And you'll see the influence clear as day.
Well, but the other thing is also you have sort of this thing that's going on in markets too, where that market has had competition for a long time, and then it resulted in the market that it is. Like, correct. There was a day when these companies were slide decks, right? There was correct. A day when these were small. And I think that from an industry perspective, it's hard, because a lot of people who are in the companies remember those days of slide doing those things.
And they took the first move. But I know guys in Florida right now that were part of that 22 cohort of the new licenses that got issued. They can't give those things away right now. No one wants to buy them.
Crazy.
Unless Florida goes adult use. they're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, no one in the right mind wants to come in here and compete with Kim unless you're a smaller craft grow operation, and that doesn't really align with some people's business initiatives. But those licenses that were granted, there's guys trying to give them away right now.
Talk about how
there's no underlying.
That's wild.
I think folks have different thesis too about what it looks like, what the market looks like, you know what I mean, or what it should look like in certain states, you know, and the problem is that I've seen this, we're making policy around product as opposed to the policy making the product sometimes, right? And what those things are. So like, that's why you've got a lot of fragmentation in the way that people talk about the market anyway. And like, just because something has high velocity doesn't mean that it's legal. I can drive at 90 miles an hour and I enjoy it, but you know, but that's not what the speed limit is. Okay. So like, that's not a good idea all the time. And I would highly recommend that you not do that. Unless I guess you're on I-76. In which case the traffic will preclude the speed limit. But at any rate, I mean, I think that's kind of the way. I think that's kind of the way that it looks. And you look at these different markets. You ask folks, like, even when we look at the folks that we're all close with, a lot of them have different thesis as to what the market should look like and what the market looks like now, and maybe even what the end state market looks like. You talk to a cannabis beverage company, they're going to see that differently than a multi-state operator in a lot of cases. And we always thought, all right, well, maybe we develop, like, does the industry develop into brands? Does it develop into a retail moat? Does it develop into like what the liquor distribution model like system looks like? What does it develop into? That story hasn't been written yet. Okay. Like, the end state of that story has not been written yet.
Because I think it's going to be, that end state is going to be a harsh reality for a lot of people down the road. And I mean, this might not be popular, but if you really want to kind of just look at an analogous product, and I'll take alcohol as being the most analogous product in terms of the CPG that cannabis is going to be put in people's hands, I think it's going to look a lot like alcohol today. The growing of marijuana and cultivation is going to become completely commoditized. You're going to have no idea who's actually growing the input product. For the most part, there'll be craft and there'll be smaller grows that still flourish in states. But for the most part, you have no idea who's actually growing that flower. The brand portfolios become Diageo, Brown-Forman, that kind of structure. And they're just brand portfolio companies that specialize in distribution and brand management. And then you've got the retailers that just sell it, which is what we have with the dispensaries, same as the liquor store model. But that makes sense because you can get economies of scale up and down the chain. It's an efficient industry. I mean, the way that the cannabis industry has been built from 0 to 1 right now is just not efficient. I mean, if anyone wants to make an argument for it being efficient, they're lying to you. It works right now for the operators in the space, but I think it looks very, very different 5 to 10 years down the road.
David Benz,
especially if interstate commerce comes into play.
David Benz writes, who's got the crap U distribution network in the US? Oh yeah. And
well, I mean, that's just like, I mean, I think that's a great point, because the thing is like, and I remember we're having this conversation, like I was at some policy conference where, like, I don't know. I mean, some of these policy conferences are totally mind numbing because you got a bunch of people, they're just like talking. They've never been in the real world. Yeah. And so like, it's like, all right, well, how do we fit this model to X, or how do we fit this model to Y? And there was like somebody up there who was talking about how like interstate commerce was going to be good for like small businesses. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, the people who have economies of scale, like they're sitting there and and then people are, basically competing from everybody else, around the world. Right now, it happens to be in this country, like the way that interstate commerce impacts this policy discussion is really, really fundamental.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Like, it actually is fundamental. Like, it's fundamental not only in the policy that's developed, but it's also fundamental in the law, the way the law overlays it. Because like, one of the things that alcohol has that marijuana does not have is they basically had constitutional protections for what it was that was put in by amendment. Right. And so like, when you look at that and you look at what the underpinning of the actual system is relative to what it is that you're going to see in a legalization thing, there still are bedrock fundamental rights that the alcohol industry is likely to have that the cannabis industry might not have, even through just an act of Congress. So it's like, all right, well, how do you solve, right? Like, how do you like solve for that? And why does it matter? Well, it matters like from a business perspective, because you need some level of certainty so that when you know that you're rolling out the products that you're rolling out, that you're not just building it on it's not just a sandcastle, right? You know, you come back to the beach the next day and the whole thing's flat and you don't know why.
Yeah,
right?
Michigan.
Yeah, like Michigan, I think Michigan is a good example. You know,
very good example.
Good example of that too. But like, look, I think that the longer this goes on, to me, I think that there are kind of like a couple of fundamental areas that are really going to be the coin of the realm going forward. One, what's taxation look like, right? We've talked about taxation a lot. Tax policy is regulatory policy. All right. After we get through the mechanics of how, why, what, or whatever, the next 100 years of this industry are going to be argued about tax policy, even with 280E gone. What are people all approaching Congress on? Tax policy. Okay. So I think that there's,
is that what you're working on a lot right now, Michael?
Spend a lot of time thinking about tax policy, but I don't mean just like, attached. Look at any other industry, right? That's a regulated industry.
True.
Think about that. Think about what that approach and what it is that it looks like. You know, the other thing is fundamentally is, all right, well, this consumer product is used as medicine. It's used for recreational purposes. It's used for a number of different things.
Problem.
It's a regulatory thing, right?
What do you think about Mark Cahotis? We've had on a few times. He's like, look, federally legalize it. Do sports betting where some states don't necessarily legalize it. That's fine. You don't drive distribution through those states, and you put on a 5% excise tax.
But the problem is you cannot treat a medicine.
I like Mark's plan. I think he's got, I like what he's. I think there's a lot more details that have.
Works great. Mark's plan works great in a vacuum.
Let's just get it done in 20 minutes and let's get on with this, right?
The problem is going to be regulating.
Oh no, it's going to happen.
Yeah, the problem is going to lie, and I don't have an answer to the question. It's how do you regulate a substance or a molecule that is seen as a medicine as well as a recreational.
That's the thing.
Product.
That is the thing.
I think you can do that. I think that you divide the lines, right? You and like, by the way, I feel like this has already started to happen. Like when you look at how hemp is being redefined, okay, you're seeing that it's being defined in 3 different distinct areas. All right, where you have an FDA lane, you've got industrial, all right, and you've got, you've got basically what folks could be using as a cannabinoid product. Okay. So like you're starting to see the bifurcation of these lanes, which needs to happen you need to do that so that you can definitionally deal with what legalization looks like. It looks like in the future at the federal level. So I think like all of these things are solvable. Okay. Yeah. I think all of these things can be done.
Yeah.
We also have a stigma that's kind of wrapped up into the industry as well. And on top of that, I mean, I'll throw on top of that, it's like we have people approaching Congress now and they're like, regulate just this X product, just this one thing.
Impossible.
All right. And the problem is because of the way the laws are structured, you can't actually do it. Like you actually have to go in with like a full, all right, this is like where it is that it's all going to go. But I think that picture is emerging more now than it has in the past.
That's the key. That's the key.
I do. It is. And I just think there's so many different interests too, that when folks look at it and how it is that they want to see it, it's going to be a messy business.
Yeah.
From a policy perspective.
Good catching up with you as usual. Glad to see you're healthy again. And, onwards and upwards. I know there was some rumors. It sounded like it was imminent last week with Attorney General Pam Bondi. Hopefully we get something soon here. But again, as we always say, I don't think it's if, it's a matter of when.
No, you got to name the time. All right. That's the way this show works.
I know, right?
You've got to name the time, and we're calling it the Shadlock.
Shadlock.
Yeah, it's the Shadlock.
Like the padlock.
When you make a call on this show, it's the Shadlock.
Can I make a few quick calls, and
Pop
then
a free pouch in.
Do it.
You'll be able to figure out. You'll be able to figure out the
I listen to your call.
Shadlock in no time.
yeah, that's it. Just it. If I lock this in at the right time, we're going to give a lot of free product from free nicotine.
There it is.
Natural product market fit right there.
So you want to stay focused. Free pouch.
Give me the lock.
Good seeing my friend. Shadlock for life. Everybody loves the Shadlock.
Shadlock,
great name. Shadlock. I like that.
Shadlock, it works.
If you're a wrestler, you'd be called Shadlock. That'd be your signature move, the Shadlock.
With two D's or 3?
4.
Yeah, definitely. It needs more.
Triple D though was a very good wrestling move back in the day.
Shad. 2 D's. Remember that sign?
Well, that's how you could describe the type of lock that it is, how certain it is.
Double D.
Right? It's my double D lock. It's my triple D lock.
How many D's are you giving this?
Right. Yeah. And who doesn't like a double D size, right, Michael? All right.
That's the thing.
All right. Listen, as Gary Busey once said in the movie Point Break, Utah, give me 2. I will see you next Monday, but good catching up with you. And actually, next Monday, we got a holiday, don't we? Yes. You guys have a holiday next Monday?
I'll make a tea time if we do, but I don't think we do.
I know what the schedule's looking like. I think you're right. I think it is a holiday.
President's Day is in January or February?
I don't know. When's is next Monday?
Martin Luther King Day. Was that January?
MLK's.
Why do you have aren't you Canadian? What's going on?
All right. We have a holiday, but
what is it? You guys have like 4 Canada, you guys have like 4 Canada days a year. There's like 1 a quarter.
I don't really I don't follow the Canadian calendar all that much.
You shouldn't.
I don't.
President's Day.
So next Monday is George Washington's birthday. I don't think banks are closed. Oh no, it's a federal holiday. Next President's Day. You were correct. President's Day.
It's definitely a federal holiday.
President's Day.
President's Day.
So that means everything's shut down for you guys?
Market's down. Banks are shut off.
Shad locked. All right, folks. It's time for the Shad guarantee.
But the guarantee was the end of January.
We get an announcement by next week. That's my guarantee.
It's locked.
Lock it in.
It's locked.
Lock it in. Courtesy of free nicotine pouches. Stay focused, stay sharp, and own your edge.
Oh yeah, the Shadlock plays into the locked in.
Yes.
This all just this marketing
and
flywheel was just created.
We're going to come back the following week and we'll lock in the new date.
That's the thing.
Orange, we need an animation for the Shadlock.
Yes. Can we get a DJ horn? Give me something. All right, Michael. Good seeing you. We got to give you a royalty because the Shad locked in. Locked.
Yeah, we'll get a royalty going. We can do that.
Yeah.
As Mr. Dozecki said, stay thirsty. Stay focused, my friend. I will see you next Monday. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Yes. Damn it, Chad.
The Shadlock would have been really good for a sports betting show.
Shadlocked. I like it. Okay. I think that wraps things up. By the way, a quick reminder as well. Today's Trade To Black podcast presented by Flowhub. Flowhub, they are unbelievable. If you want to know one thing that matters, it's compliance. As I said earlier, Flowhub comes in. They power licensed cannabis retailers with real-time inventory tracking, ID verification. Maybe you should be aware of this, Senator Bud, and realize companies like Flowhub actually have ID verification that takes it out of the hands of youth. They also have compliance tools that brings transparency to an industry that desperately needs it, and they do it. So regulated markets work, and Flowhub helps make sure that they stay that way. Learn more by booking a demo at flowhub.com. That's it for today. We're going to keep you posted. I've reached out to Luke Mongeau and the crew. Hopefully we can get Canopy on this week. Organigram, they have earnings tomorrow as well. Adam Stetner's going to come back on. Yes, Adam Stetner from Fun Canna. Love these conversations we're having with him every Thursday. But we'll have him back on, carrying over some of the conversation that we had last week and the prior week with him. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Maybe we should reach out to Mr. Cohodes and see if he can make an appearance again this week. Have him back on. But all in all, like I said, we're here Monday through Thursday after markets, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Markets were pretty relatively flat today for the industry, was it not?
Relatively flat, yep.
MSOS.
Relatively flat.
What did it?
Boris, I'll probably reach out to Boris to have him on once their earnings come out.
Yeah, and
I'm not going to have him come on just to talk about the refi. I'll have him come on to do the full
yeah.
full recap as he usually does every quarter for the Curaleaf earnings.
And one thing I will say, everyone, make sure if you're not a member, subscribe to us now, because that is going to be a hell of a conversation that Anthony is going to have with Hirsch on Wednesday pertaining to the Ohio market. Hirsch is very well versed in the Ohio market. So we'll get more details on what this lawsuit could mean. And like we said, it would like, is this going to go anywhere? Could this have a domino effect in other states? So it's an important conversation. So best of luck, my friend, with that. I'm sure you two will kick butt with that.
Kick butt.
Kick butt. Sorry. I was looking at a comment and I sort of had a brain cramp there. I'm sure you guys will do very well.
Kick butt.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like I'm 49. I am 49. I can't believe I'm 49. Going to be 50 this year. It's a little surreal, but
we're kicking butt and taking names.
I feel young, though. I feel focused. All right, everybody. Thanks so much.
Are you locked in?
I'm locked in. We'll see you tomorrow, 4:00. Thank you. Have a good day. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names in the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.